right, good evening and welcome to the program Spot On. My name is Jacqueline Adibija and you're welcome. This is Invicta 98.9 FM Kaduna. Of course, we reach the whole world. And we are live on Facebook as we speak, so you might want to go on Facebook and take a look at what is going on. There's so much that goes on into radio programming, many voices that you do not hear. Some of them you hear them, you get to see them doing their thing on our Facebook page. Remember to like the page before you leave so that even when you're away, you're not listening, you get to follow what's going on right back here at home. Today on Spot On, we'll be taking a look at something that, a lot of people would say is becoming a monster. A lot of us talk about corruption being a monster. This corruption is killing us. Corruption is the bane of this society. Corruption, if we don't kill it, it will kill us. However, while we're talking corruption, there are other monsters that are growing. And today we want to shed a light on one of those monsters. It isn't a monster that many of us like to talk about because it will require a lot of effort. And this time around, it is personal effort, us taking personal responsibility. It would be very hard to shift it to the government in this case, even though, of course, they always have a part to play. But in a lot of what we're going to be talking about today would be to educate ourselves and to also know what the situation is. We're talking about substance abuse, what we commonly call drug abuse. Whatever it is that we call it, it is a monster. Dear listener, it is a monster and it is growing by the day, I tell you. And that is why it is with great pleasure that I welcome into the studio Mr. Ejikeme. Mr. Ejikeme, among so many other things, is the PRO of the International Society for Substance Use Professionals, ISOP. It is a pleasure to have you here, Mr. Ejikeme. Thank you for making time to be with us on Invicta.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you. Now, because I know that you've done so much, you're working closely with the United Nations body that deals with, substance abuse and issues that surround all of this. And that is why, who better to come to ask for what the picture is like in Nigeria. What burden are we carrying as regards this issue of drug abuse? And then, of course, I would like for you to bring it back home to Kaduna State. What are the figures telling us? What is it like?
Okay. Thank you so much. It's really a monster, just like you have said. Trying to bring it down. Let me start from the global statistics. On the 24th of June this year, 2021, the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime launched its 2021 World Drug Report, noting that around 275 million people used drug worldwide last year.
275 million.
275 million. Now, while over 36 million people suffered from drug use disorder, 36 million. Now, some of these substance-induced disorder include delirium, dementia, amnestic disorder, psychotic disorder, anxiety disorder, sexual dysfunction, among so many other things they cause. Now, within the last 24 years, cannabis potency has increased by as much as 4 times in so many parts of the world. The potency of cannabis has increased. Now, even as at that percentage of adolescents who perceive the drug as harmful, it has fallen. Young people think that the potency of cannabis has fallen down, and because of that, they are rushing into it. Now, highlighting the implication of the dangerous trend, the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime Executive Director, that is Galawali, said that lower perception of drug use risk has been linked to higher rates of drug use. And the findings of UNODC 2021 World Drug Report highlighted the need to close the gap between perception and reality to educate young people in order to safeguard public health. Now, the report observed that between 2010 and 2019, the number of people using drugs increased by 22%.
In the whole world or
in the whole world?
Okay.
I'm talking about globally. I'm still going to state
yes,
down.
Yes.
Yeah.
It increased.
It increased. Between 2010 to 2019, it increased by 22%. Now, it linked the increase to the growing number of global population, and that following the demographic changes, it is projected by 2030, the number of people using drugs will further increase by 11%. Now, when you bring it down to Nigeria...
Before we bring it down, Mr. Ejikeme, if my math is correct, I'm not too good at math, but if we are saying that right now we have about 22% increase on what we had before, and we're saying that the projection, what they're seeing, looking at the trends, is that
another 11%.
Another 11%.
Exactly.
That means by that time we'll have close to half of the world's population abusing drugs in one form or the other.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, the situation in Nigeria, various research experts, output by research experts, and relevant national and international organizations have consistently reviewed the dangerous rising cases of drug use in the country, which is Nigeria, and the damaging consequences of violent crimes and abuses that are going on, and the health complication. Now, in Nigeria today, like all over the world, the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, because we rely so much on them for statistics, and some of the reports we have, they say that many Nigerian adolescents no longer see the harmful effects, just like it is globally, of psychoactive drugs, despite their biting consequences. Now, just recently, various worrisome images, video clips suspected to be that of Chidinma, we heard what happened. The way that young people are embracing all these substances. The young girl of 21, of Lagos State University, that killed somebody after they had, some cocktail of drugs. So now, this is what is really happening. A lot of young people in Nigeria are going into it. Now, the 2018 National Drug Use Survey, which is a joint research by the National Bureau of Statistics and the Center for Research and Information on Substance Abuse, CRISA, with technical support from the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, which was launched in 2019, gives a pathetic account of rising drug use in Nigeria, noting that as of the time of the research, 14.3 million Nigerians aged between 15 and 64 years engage in drug use.
Come again?
14.3 million Nigerians aged between 15 to 64 years.
14.3 million Nigerians.
And we are talking about, we are looking at a population of about 200 million.
Yes.
Now, 14.3 out of that population.
Aged between...
And it's not that we have captured all. By the time you have the actual...
a more comprehensive...
part is going to shoot up drastically. You see. Now, of this figure, the survey added that about 3 million were drug dependent and suffering from substance use disorder. About 3 million. Their situation has become critical. No longer that they abuse drugs, but this one is that they have now developed disorder. You see. Now, but the latest report now by the by UNODC hints of a sharp degeneration. In fact, it has increased above the global average in the near future. According to this report, instead of the expected 11% that we were talking about before, the increase in Nigeria is going to be around 40%.
Are you... that is mind
blowing.
Mind blowing, actually.
So
40%
by 2030.
By 2030. That is, if we don't do anything about it.
Don't do anything. It means that, in fact, almost in every family, you are going to have people who are abusing drugs. Now, the statistics also says that 11 million Nigerians took to cannabis as of 2018, while 4.6 million and 2.4 million others were said to have used opioids and cough syrup respectively. Now, other substances said to have been commonly taken in Nigeria include tranquilizers, sedatives, solvents, inhalers, and all those other ones.
Other types.
Now, according to the data, the prevalence of drug use in Nigeria on a geographical zonal basis reveals that the Southwest tops the chart.
Okay.
And when you're talking about the Southwest, you are talking about, Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Osun, Ondo, and Ekiti states.
Mm-hmm.
They have about 4.382 million users, amounting to 22% of the total population of Nigeria. The second is the Northwest. And when you come to the Northwest zone, we have Kano, we have Sokoto, we have Kaduna, we have Zamfara, Katsina, and Kebbi states.
We're actually second. I mean, the Northwest.
The Northwest is second. You see. And when you are talking about, substance abuse in the Northwest, Kaduna is topping the chart. So you see, from the global, we have come to the national. We are now coming down.
Kaduna is topping the charts, even above Kano.
Yeah.
Wow. I thought Kano was actually up there.
Because Kano has greater population.
Yes.
When comparatively.
Okay, comparatively.
Yeah. You can't compare the population of Kano
to that of Kaduna State, right?
So, now when you are talking about the drug situation in the Northwest, we're talking about Kaduna State. There was a recent survey done by Kabuza, that's the Kaduna State Bureau for Substance Abuse. It reveals that 10.9% of Kaduna residents are involved in drug and abuse of other related substances.
10.9.
10.9. This was revealed by the Director General while he was briefing the newsmen. What this portends is that 11 out of 100 residents are engaged in substance abuse.
10 out of 11.
11 out of 100.
Out of 100.
Yes.
Residents are
now,
actually
if you bring
engaged.
it down, maybe less to the closest ratio, 1 out of 10. So where you have about 10 persons, 1%.
It's already...
there's this popular saying, out of every 12, there must be a Judas. So now it's out of every 10, there must be an abuser.
That's not a good picture at all.
That's to show you, the situation, the drastic situation that we have found ourselves. Now, more worrisome to this situation is that apart from the conventional drugs taken by many people in Kaduna State, young people now take to other substances, which include petrol, sniffing petrol, sniffing septic tank, drainages, latrine, smoking lizard bats, smoking dried horses' feces.
So, I must ask you, Mr. Ejikeme, how do you must, with the level of your interaction, I'm sure you've interacted with some of these people. How do they get to thinking even about these concoctions? How do they come up with these other alternative means? Because, we're talking about mopping up, NAFDAC, the NDLEA trying their best to ensure that, they're stopping hard drugs from coming into the country, and then, of course, that there be some form of sanity when it comes to the use of controlled drugs. But we can very well not go about packing horse dung, killing all the lizards that we have around, because, how do they come? Has anyone ever asked a recovered, abuser, how did you come about learning that dried lizard parts or, something like horse dung, dung, would get you high?
When you talk about these guys, they are very creative and innovative. They are always experimenting. And sometimes they accidentally stumble to all these things. So, and once they get it, they know how to make it popular among them.
Themselves.
They are always ahead. There's this thing now that is making round, trying to initiate, because they see that the prevention effort, you can't go around packing the dunks or doing all stuff, mopping up everything. But with intensive and comprehensive prevention effort, at least we'll be able to achieve some results. Now they see that it's as if prevention efforts are paying off. Now they are trying to also, innovate other means of getting people addicted. I was sharing, there's this guy that was discussing with me, they have started making cookies laden with substances, ignorantly introducing young people. There was this woman, they had an emergency trip. They traveled emergently. So, and because of that, they had to travel with their children. So, one of the daughters, that's a very young girl, in primary school, she was restless. She was crying for her cookie. She was crying. The mommy said, no, let me buy. They offered her different other things. She couldn't. It was when the teen, she started, displaying some signs of withdrawal.
Yes.
That was when they had to take her
to the hospital.
And it was discovered that this girl is already getting addicted to substances without knowing it. And when they, ignorantly initiate these people into all these things, you will be the one that will be looking for it. And you'll be looking for them. You see it? So they are always a mile ahead of us, trying to see how they will still keep being in business, trying to see how they keep people, in this menace of substance abuse. So they are always experimenting. The same way, maybe you go to the lab trying to get solutions, just like when we had the COVID-19. As they were experimenting, that is how they are still trying. And in Nigeria, because of the level of poverty also, they are trying to find cheaper ways of getting high also. Yeah. Because of the poverty level, sometimes they may not really have the money to buy some of these drugs that cost a fortune. They may not have the money to get high from the other conventional ones. So they try to find a way of also still getting high at a very cheap or at no cost. So they are always, that is one bad thing about addiction. You do everything you can to see that you satisfy your addiction.
When you were talking about that little girl, my heart just, skipped a bit, because I was just wondering the level of depravity for someone to go and sell cookies that are laced with drugs to children in primary school. And,
secondary schools, they are doing it. That is why this issue of fighting the drug war is a holistic fight. Everybody, all hands must be on deck. You see, we are trying to see how we come up with, an intervention that will have this, people that operate restaurant, people that operate, that make cookies and all stuff. Yeah. So that they will be educated and also have NAFDAC go to test some of the things they have.
Random testing.
They will not be informed about the company. Because a lot of things are really happening. Like
Mr. Ikeme, please, coming back to this little girl, did they follow up on that matter? Was it cookies that were well packaged or?
Well packaged.
Well packaged cookies.
Exactly. Well packaged cookies.
Wow.
So that is what is happening.
So we've even gotten to a point, because this is why we have you here, to come and also open the eyes of parents up to some of these issues. A child starts to, insist on a certain brand of whatever it is. One needs to start getting suspicious of why that child really, really wants that brand. Because, well-packaged cookies, laced, this brings me to the story of the young man who jumped to his death, I think at 400 level. Yeah. That boy was almost done at the Abia State University. His friends, somehow fed him Colorado. And Miss Ejikeme, I've actually had the opportunity to interact with young people here, talked about drug abuse over the years. And I've heard all sorts of stories. I've heard stories of, children, teenagers or young adults in university who made a point of telling their friends that, look, there was this particular story where she told them, I don't do drugs. I'm not interested. And what they did was to invite her that day, and they cooked noodles.
Yeah.
And they put it inside. And the very disturbing aspect, apart from the fact that they lured her into doing this, was that when she started to act out, which was, she started unclothing, herself. They actually stood there and videoed it. They took videos. And she told me that up till tomorrow it haunts her because she is not sure that video might emerge someday. She said she followed up on it. She was told by one of them that, look, one or two persons actually took your video. And she said that she followed up and they swore that they had deleted it. But she said she's not sure. And that thought alone has given her anxiety. She has this at the back of her mind every day. She wakes up, she has anxiety because she somewhere, I think in her subconscious, is just any day that thing can come out. Any day that thing can come out. So before I jump to the obvious, which is what are the steps that a lot of us need to start taking, even more than what we were doing before, I think I would like for you to define for us drug abuse. Because the reason why I am saying this is, it would seem like there are some of us who even abuse substances and we don't even know that we're part of the statistics.
When you're talking about drug abuse, simply, it just refers to an unusual, wrong and excessive use of substances. Unusual, wrong and excessive use of substances. The abuse could be in the form of excessive consumption or application of drugs with or without prescription. Excessive consumption with or without. With prescription. Sometimes you go to the hospital and the doctor prescribes the drug, for a particular ailment. Maybe you take it. By the time you take it, you feel better. And you are supposed to take it for like 10 days. But because after 2 days you feel better, you go and drop. You are abusing it. And sometimes you go to the clinic, they give you a small, tiny drug. And because of the way you are feeling, you say, Kai, what is this tiny drug going to do? Because of that, and they ask you to take just only one tab. You say, no, one tab, I'm not sure it's going to really do anything. So you add to, you're abusing it. Why I'm bringing this aspect of abuse is because a lot of us abuse drugs. When they talk about drug abuse, our neck tries to stretch to look out for the people who are abusing the drugs without knowing that somehow too, we may be victims of it. You see it? So it is just the unusual, wrong, and excessive use of drug in a layman's term, so that you can understand it.
I mean, with your definition, it would seem that almost all of us, abuse substances of one type or the other.
That we do in Nigeria, in Kaduna here. You have, headache, you have fever, you just walk into a chemist. You say, please give me Panadol, give me fancy, give me this and that. You are the one that is telling the patent medicine seller what he will give you. Now, when he brings it, sometimes the funny part of it, when he brings it, he shows it to you. He brings like 4 different, he said they are doing the same thing. This one is 800, this one is 400, this one is 200. He said, okay, give me the 200 naira on. You have not run any test to know what is actually wrong with you. There was no prescription by a qualified medical personnel. But because of the way you feel, you diagnosed yourself and prescribe for yourself. You're abusing it. So sometimes that is why, by extension, when you take drug without prescription by a qualified medical personnel, you are abusing it. That is where these other guys or people that will go and take codeine, they don't have any cough. That will take cough syrup containing codeine. They don't have any cough. They don't have any reason for that. It was not prescribed to them. But because of the addiction, they are always going for it. You see, that's the other aspect of drug abuse.
So we have hard drugs, and then what would we call these ones where a lot of us fall under?
Well, prescription drugs.
Prescription drugs. Pardon me, Mr. Ejikeme, but don't we have over-the-counter drugs too?
We abuse over-the-counter drugs too. Prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs. Like over-the-counter drug, in fact, that is the one that we mostly abuse. Thank you for mentioning it. You know, like you just walk in and say, give me paracetamol, give me this one. Anybody can sell it. So we also abuse those ones too.
If you're just joining us this evening, with us in the studio, Mr. Ejikeme, and he is the PRO, talking about the Public Relations Officer of the International Society for Substance Use Professionals, ISOP. And they work closely with the UNODC, the arm of the United Nations that deals with drug abuse and all the associated challenges that comes along with it. And you've heard the statistics. They're not something that we want to push to the back of any back burner anymore. We'll get a chance to open up the phone lines so that you can talk to Mr. Ejikeme when we get back. Let's go on this quick commercial break, and when we get back, the lines will be open. Stay with us. It's still Invicta 98.9. Welcome back from that commercial break, still with Mr. Ejikeme in the studio. And we're talking about the monster of substance abuse. Notice that, yes, while we use them interchangeably in this society, we're talking substance abuse so that we understand that it goes beyond hard drugs. You and I are also guilty, you know, when we just tell children, go and take that. Mommy, I have a headache, and go to my bag, go and bring that, you know. So we are all guilty, even though we know that there's some that are really, you know, really bad, or should I say worse than others. But then again, who says, if you take a look at it, the damage that all these common analgesics actually do to the liver and the kidneys, who is to say which one is the worst of them all? Substance abuse is an issue, and we need to understand what it is so that we can stop doing it. And then, of course, look out for signs. Mr. Ejikeme is with us, and I'd like to open up the phone line so that as we're taking your calls, would also be, you know, still talking with him, chatting in real time, getting your questions answered. So the lines are open, and the numbers are 081 40,000 989. Once again, that's 081 40,000 989. And we have 07087 800 989. Once again, that's 07087 800 989. I see the lines are buzzing. Keep your questions simple and to the point. Good evening. Good evening. All right. So that call got dropped. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
You're welcome, sir. Go ahead. Your name?
I'm Luka Adla, calling from Moravarido.
You're welcome, sir. Your question or, you know, your contribution?
And my contribution is this. Talking about drug abuse or substances abuse. Because like Bradley said, you and I are involved.
Mm-hmm.
But one other thing I also want to ask is that doctor or medical personnel in general prescribe drugs for you. I always expect that at least the drugs should be given based on the weight of the patient and the age. But that is no longer tenable in this country. Is that not drug abuse?
Okay, good question.
That is one. Two, you see, the main reason why there is drug abuse in this country is illiteracy and ignorance. Those are the two main things. And thirdly, Nigeria is not stubborn. You see, even if we tell them this today, tomorrow they'll say, to hell with. After all, I took it yesterday, I was okay, so I'll take it today again. So in general, hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Luka.
The bottom line is illiteracy and ignorance that are causing all those things. Okay. So I still ask the question, what age is it not being considered when you are administering drugs? Have a nice day.
And thank you, Mr. Luka, for your question. Are our doctors not abusing substances too when they prescribe drugs without weighing their patients? Hello, good evening.
Hello. Good evening. I am Michael Edino, from Narai.
You're welcome, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Michael.
Yeah. The topic under this discussion this evening is very interesting one, because this insecurity that we are facing in our country today is as a result of drug abuse. So if you can do away with all this substance abuse, I think it will help to cut the radicalization of this insecurity. Then I have a suggestion to ask. My question is, if somebody that is addicted to a particular substance, how can the person do away with it?
Someone who is addicted, how can they stop being addicted? How can they do away with it?
Yes, that is addicted to a particular substance, how can he or she avoid it?
Okay, so let's allow Mr. Ejike answer these two questions, and then as quickly as possible so that we can take more calls. As you can see, the lines are buzzing, but let's allow you answer them quickly. The first question, doctors, a lot of doctors nowadays don't weigh patients, they just prescribe. Is this not substance abuse too?
Well, I would like to ask if he has truly verified that they don't weigh patients. And if it's truly that they don't weigh, then the attention needs to be called to do that. But I can't really say that they don't do that, because any qualified doctor knows what he should do in order to prescribe it all. And when you enter their offices, you see the scale there. So if there's any doctor that is not doing it, he's not doing the right thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So our second question. How do you go about helping someone stop addiction?
Addiction is a disease. It's a disease. And what do you do when somebody has a disease? The person goes for treatment. So the person needs treatment. And when you go to the right place, you get a solution.
So this isn't something that you can just stop on your own?
Well, some people will tell you that willpower does it. That is not evidence-based. Just like when you say you have headache and maybe you just believe you are going to get okay and all of a sudden it stops. Well, it's not evidence-based. When you have a disease, you go to the right place for treatment and you get the treatment. We have the Federal Neuropsychiatry Hospital. We have other rehabilitation centers that you have qualified professionals that will handle the case, give you the right direction, then you get better.
Well, you heard it there. I don't think at this point we should talk about cost, because we haven't even begun to talk about the cost of having one's population, or a country having their population largely abusing substances, whether be it economically or socially. Someone mentioned the insecurity. It's all a part of it. Still taking your calls this evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Jackie. How are you?
I'm doing great, ma'am. Who is this?
Mrs. Sikwen from Nigeria. I want to respond to the other man that says most of the time doctors do not weigh their patients. My husband actually fell a victim of this.
Really?
Around that 2017, yes.
Okay.
In Baraudiko Hospital, specifically. My husband had a partial stroke, and after the whole thing, we were going for this appointment check-up here and there. One of those times, the drug was prescribed. The thing almost took his life. But as God would like to rescue him, I just got anxious or inquisitive. I had to read the what do you call it, the literature that normally is inside the
yes.
So I had to sit down and read it through. Then I discovered that drug is not supposed to be taken by somebody who is above 55 years old. And my husband was at 70 plus. And he was given for us to even be giving him two times a day. That is 4 tablets a day.
Wow.
So it happened. But God rescued him because God just put in my heart to read the literature there. And I went back during the next appointment and I told the doctor, so how did I discover it? I said I read the literature in it. Well, he just commended me, he even asked whether I'm a teacher. I said yes. He said because it is teachers that know how to read, so inquisitive to read, but it is actually true. Our doctors, especially the young generation doctors, you really take note of that.
But you really should have followed this up with management, because who knows how many other lives have been put at risk because you didn't follow up. You should have asked for the CMD.
It didn't occur that I should follow up. I thought of giving him the drug before I even went for the next appointment checkup as it were. Then I complained that this is what I experienced. Well, I'm sorry I didn't follow up.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Mrs. Itwen, for sharing that with us. That's a whole new discussion altogether, this matter that Mrs. Itwen just related to us. Still taking your calls this evening. It would seem like we've said, Mr. Ejikeme, it seems like the UNODC does not even know half of the story as regards Nigeria. The picture is really grim, because if we have a doctor doing that, I mean, what if this woman was illiterate? I mean, someone who couldn't read, they would have lost that man. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you. My name is Raymond. I'm calling from Sabo.
You're welcome, Raymond. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I still want to really talk about what the woman I just called now. What she said is very correct. I had the same experience. My wife was actually very, very heavy. She went to hospital and the doctor prescribed drug for her. So on coming back home, I said, let me check this drug properly and read the detail that is inside the drug. I'm going through the this that is inside. It was written that a pregnant woman is not supposed to take this drug. So when I go through the something now and I went back to the hospital, I gave it to the doctor and I showed it. I draw his attention to it. He saw it and said, oh, he was very sorry. I don't want to mention the name of the hospital because of some reason. So it do happen. So
was it a private hospital or a public hospital?
It's a public hospital. It's not a private hospital at all. So these things do happen.
Hospital.
Yes. So it's a government-owned hospital. So this
and the doctor just told you sorry, sir.
He said he is sorry. He is very, very sorry. That's what he told me.
And you didn't take it up either with the hospital management?
I did not take it up.
Well, this is a fault that we have. Yeah. It's a fault that we have, because if it happened to you, it would have happened to many others before you, and with not such good outcome. And it will still happen to other people after you.
That is right. That is very, very correct.
Let's cultivate this habit of taking up issues, and let's stop saying, oh, we've forgiven and forgotten. What about the other people? Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, my sister.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Ejikeme.
Yeah, good evening.
Elder Dari Adebanjo.
Elder, you're welcome. It's great to have you on the program.
My sister, you're doing a wonderful job. The Lord bless you real good.
Thank you, Elder.
I want to take us a bit out of this. in parks, mechanic villages, you find these people selling sex enhancement drug. And they know nothing how to read and write. But yet, publicly, we go about selling these things. Only God knows how many damage these drug peddlers have, caused on people. One came close to my workshop one day, and innocently somebody bought the drug. I called it out. I said, "Come, what is wrong with you? The person selling this drug doesn't know what he's selling. Why are you patronizing? If you must patronize, go to registered chemist or pharmacy and go and buy a drug. And whether we like it or not, some of these guys too, they still sell hard drugs to some innocent people. So I want us to beam our searchlight on that aspect. You see them, especially in mechanic village, sex enhancement drug. I mean, it's terrible. They know nothing about the drug they're selling, but yet people are patronizing it. God bless you, my sister.
Wow. Elder Dari, as usual, thank you so much for that insight there. Mr. Ejikeme, you hear the people. I mean, these are people who are listening to you in real time. Let's take one last call, and then we'll come back to you. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, my name is Ezekiel. I'm calling from Bananja.
Ezekiel, please go ahead quickly.
Please, I just want to ask one question, because like 2 months ago, my wife she was pregnant, so she can't feel stomach pain. And I sent her to the hospital in my village. So when she got there, they give her some drugs. After taking the drugs, in a few 2 weeks coming, she now lost the pregnancy. So now she has get another pregnancy and she begin to feel that stomach pain. Please, how can I do to solve that problem?
And she's still having the tummy problem?
Yes.
That's another issue altogether. We don't. Okay, please. I don't know. Maybe I'll connect you with the House of Justice. I know that House of Justice takes up medical malpractice cases for people. So I'm just going to point you in that direction. They're at that GT Bank, the GT Bank in Bernawa. If you follow that road down, just opposite those shopping complexes, you know what I'm talking about. Yes, you'll just see HOJ. Please walk in there and you can ask for Gloria Balasin. Let's see what they can do about your situation. They're the only ones I know who take up cases like this. They're actually lawyers and they're specialized in medical issues like that. So if they can prove that, the miscarriage and everything led up was from the prescription and all of that, maybe there'll be a case that they can help you with. You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, Mr. Ejikeme, we've run out of time, so I'm just going to ask you. There are so many issues that have come up. We're talking about abuse, and now we're looking at where people actually go to the right sources, and then they find out that they've been cheated out of proper care. Yeah. And this is what we're hearing from so many people who are listening to us this evening, and that gives cause for concern. So can we talk about some of the things that we should be doing as people? Personal responsibility, both on our part and on the part of the government. Because personally, I just think that I'm just going to go out and say before you finish, Mr. Ejikeme, that as Nigerians, we need to stop this issue of when they tell us sorry. Yeah. We just let it go.
We just let it go.
Because you need to think about the other people who are going to face the same kind of negligence.
Exactly.
Probably lose their lives if you let go of that situation like that.
You're right.
Mr. Ejikeme.
Yeah. So what exactly?
Your words of advice to us, taking personal responsibility, and then of course from the side of government, what should we hope to see?
When we are talking about substance abuse prevention, everybody is a stakeholder. Just the same way you are doing this one to promote the awareness so so that people will know the risk factors, the protective factors, and what they really need to do. Now, for those people, just like you have said, that fell victim to the negligence of those doctors, they shouldn't have just taken sorry. Because being a stakeholder in substance abuse prevention would have fired them up to see that that circle is broken. Mm-hmm. They are also preventing. Because when the medical personnel that are involved are properly sanctioned, next time they are going to be more careful.
Right. So
everybody should see himself as a stakeholder. And that one is even, in fact, it's a deadlier, aspect of abuse, because it has to do with life, terminating life. The others could make you go mad. The others could make you live with the addiction for some time. But this one, if it is not properly handled or addressed, life will be lost instantly. So it needs to be treated with immediate urgency. So if anybody finds out such negligence again, that person needs to report to the appropriate authority. If the person doesn't know who to report to, I think they should call you. They have your number.
Right.
And you can take it up.
A lot of people do have my number, but I'll call it out again shortly before we go. We've run out of time, like I said, but please, in 30 seconds, can you call some of the names of common, I'll tell you, the boy who jumped to his death.
Yeah.
That was the first time I was seeing Colorado. As far as I'm concerned, Colorado is a place in the United States.
Yeah.
Only to hear Colorado, and it was that day I heard about Loud.
Yeah.
And some other names like that. Yeah. What are some common names that when you hear, young children or young adults talking about Loud?
You have Loud, you have Eyes, you have Colorado, you have SK, you have Sele, then you have Met, you have TM. TM is for Tramadol. You have Zor and Shisha. You understand?
Even Shisha that is taken in clubs.
Yeah. That's, even some people take it at home. There are a lot of people that take it even with their children watching. And when you go to some families, they take it together with their children.
Right.
That one is also a very...
We need to have you back, Mr. Ejikeme. We have run out of time, but suffice it to say that I'm hoping and praying that parents who are listening, this gave you another wake-up call. The drug problem is not going away, it's growing bigger, and we need to watch out for our children. Some people will say, who watched out for us? The bottom line is, it wasn't as bad as this when we were growing up. And we have a responsibility to ensure that these children have the best life possible as adults. And there's something heartening I heard. They say that if you're able to watch and protect your children, help them, guide them to a point where they grow to 18 and above, the chances of them falling back into hard drugs abuse especially lowers. So that means that if we can help those children till they're, guide them, protect them, open up their eyes, have these conversations with them, and then of course tell them about all the things that could happen. It's not every friend in school that will cook for you as a university student and you want to eat. There's so many things. Like I said, hope we have Mr. Ejikeme back. This conversation is not something we can finish within one hour, but thank you so much, Mr. Ejikeme. We really appreciate you for coming in this evening. Mr. Ejikeme is PRO Kaduna Chapter ISOP, talking about the International Society of Substance Use Professionals. And we really appreciate you. Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much. Until next week, to all our listeners out there, it's doable. I know the world is full of so many challenges, but this one, we must be on top of it. Remain victorious.